What happens when a man who only speaks the language of violence is forced to learn the words for love? He walks into his own wedding drenched in blood, suit stained red, knuckles still raw, and locks eyes with a bride he's never met. In that single moment, his world tilts. But when fate chains them together, he makes her a promise, 90 days. Fall for me, or I'll set you free. But what they didn't know was that on the 89th day, their whole world would collapse, that falling in love would make them targets, and in his world, love isn't a weakness, it's a death sentence. Hello, my beautiful lovelies. Welcome back to another heart-stopping story here on the channel. Before we dive into this intense journey, I'm starting something special, a new tradition just for you. As you watch, I want you to drop a comment telling me, what moment in today's story gave you butterflies? And don't forget to tell me where in the world you're watching from. I'll be giving shout-outs to my amazing viewers in the next video, so make sure you let me know you're here. Now, let's get into this story because trust me, you're not ready for what's about to unfold. The warehouse in Gangnam reeked of copper and gasoline. Min-jun wiped his blade on a dead man's shirt, his expression empty as the corpses at his feet. 32 years of existence, and he'd never felt anything beyond the cold satisfaction of a job well done. His phone buzzed. 3 words from his right-hand man, Tae-hyun, wedding in 2 hours. He didn't bother cleaning up. Across the world in Johannesburg, Zola stood before a mirror in a white dress she hadn't chosen, paid for by a family that had never wanted her. 24 years of being invisible, of swallowing words, of nodding when men spoke. Her father entered without knocking. He never did. You'll do as you're told in Korea, he said, not looking at her. This marriage saves us. Don't embarrass the family. She nodded. She always nodded. The flight to Seoul was silent. Her mother didn't come. Her sisters didn't say goodbye. Zola watched South Africa disappear beneath clouds and wondered if anyone would notice if the plane never landed. Min-jun's empire was built on fear. The Korean syndicate controlled everything from Busan to the DMZ, drugs, weapons, politicians. He'd inherited it at 19 when his father's enemies finally succeeded in putting a bullet through the old man's skull. Min-jun had spent the next decade ensuring no one ever tried that again. He ruled through calculated brutality, and his men worshipped him for it. Love was a fairy tale. Women were distractions. Marriage was a transaction. Until the alliance. The South African network was expanding into Asia, and Min-jun's advisors insisted. Unite the territories or risk a war neither side could afford. So he agreed to marry some girl he'd never met, sight unseen. It meant nothing. She'd live in his house, bear his name, and stay out of his way. Tae-hyun met him at the venue, eyes widening at the blood splattered across Min-jun's suit. You couldn't shower first? Is she here? Yes, but... Min-jun walked past him into the traditional hall. Korean and South African families lined opposite sides of the room, tension crackling between them like a live wire. Elders whispered. Guards fingered weapons beneath their jackets. This wasn't a wedding. It was a ceasefire with flowers. Then he saw her. Zola stood at the altar in white, hands clasped, eyes downcast. Delicate, fragile, completely out of place in a room full of killers. Something in Min-jun's chest lurched violently, like a knife twisting between ribs. His vision tunneled. The world reduced to her, the curve of her jaw, the way she trembled, the rapid pulse visible at her throat. What the hell was this? He walked toward her, guests parting instinctively, blood still wet on his knuckles. She looked up, finally, and their eyes met. Time stopped. Zola's breath caught. The man approaching her was terrifying, tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes like black ice and crimson staining his expensive suit. She should run. Every instinct screamed it. But she couldn't move, couldn't think, because something in those cold eyes made her skin burn in ways she'd never felt before. Min-jun reached her, invading her space completely. His hand rose, still bloody, and cupped her face with shocking gentleness. She flinched but didn't pull away. Couldn't. I'm going to make you mine, he murmured, voice low and dangerous. In all aspects. It wasn't a question. It was a promise, a threat, a vow that had nothing to do with the ceremony about to begin. Zola's voice failed her. She nodded feebly, hating herself for the obedience drilled into her bones. But beneath the fear, something else stirred, a dangerous curiosity, a traitorous heat that made her knees weak. The officiant rushed through the vows. No one was paying attention anyway. The alliance was sealed the moment Min-jun slid the ring onto her finger and pulled her against him, proprietary and possessive. His lips brushed her ear. You're mine now. She should be terrified. She was terrified. So why did her body lean into him? The reception was a blur of strange faces and languages she didn't speak. Min-jun kept her at his side, hand always touching her waist, her shoulder, the small of her back, claiming her in front of everyone. His men stared. Her family looked relieved to be rid of her. When they finally left for his mansion in Hanam Dong, Zola's heart hammered so loudly she was certain he could hear it. The house was massive, cold, intimidating like him. He led her inside, and she noticed how his men bowed, how even the walls seemed to bend to his will. This was his kingdom, and she was what? A bride? A prisoner? A pawn? Your room is upstairs, he said abruptly. Second door on the left. She blinked. My room. Did you think we'd share? His jaw tightened. Not yet. He walked away before she could respond, leaving her standing in the foyer, confused and oddly disappointed. Zola explored the mansion like a ghost. Every room was pristine, expensive, and empty of warmth. She found his office, door ajar, and froze at the sight inside. Weapons mounted on walls, files with photos of dead men, a desk with blood still smeared on the corner. This was his world. Violence, death, power, and she was supposed to survive in it. 3 days passed. Minjun avoided her, leaving early, returning late. But she felt his eyes on her constantly, guards watching her every move. She ate alone, slept alone, existed in this gilded cage, wondering if this was all her life would ever be. On the fourth night, he found her in the garden, staring at the Seoul skyline. Do you regret it? His voice came from behind her, rough. Would it matter if I did? Silence. Then he moved closer, so close she could feel his heat. Give me 90 days. She turned, confused. What? His eyes burned into hers, desperate in a way that didn't match his reputation. 90 days to make you fall in love with me, the way you wouldn't be able to get me out of your mind. After that, if you want to leave, I'll divorce you. I'll let you go. Damn the alliance. Zola stared at him, shocked. You'd let me choose? Yes. No one had ever given her a choice. Not once in 24 years. Her father decided her clothes, her friends, her future. And now this dangerous man, this killer, was offering her something no one else ever had. Freedom. Okay, she whispered. 90 days. His hand cupped her face again, reverent this time. I don't know how to do this, but I'll try. She believed him, and that terrified her most of all. Day 7 of the 90 arrived with an unexpected gift on Zola's breakfast table. She unwrapped the velvet box, expecting jewelry perhaps, and froze. A custom Glock 19, matte black with her initials engraved on the grip. Minjun appeared in the doorway, looking oddly proud. You need protection. Thank you. She had no idea how to hold a gun. His face fell slightly. You don't like it. It's very practical. She tried to smile, and something in his expression softened in a way that made her chest ache. Romance, she was learning, meant something entirely different to a man raised in blood. The next day, he took her to Myeongdong. Zola had never walked freely through a city before. Her father had controlled every outing, every destination. Now she wandered through shops while Minjun followed 3 steps behind, silent as a shadow. When a street vendor's eyes lingered too long on her, Minjun was there instantly, hand on the man's throat. Look away, he said quietly. The vendor went pale. Minjun, Zola whispered, embarrassed but also thrilled in a way she didn't want to examine. He wasn't doing anything. He was breathing your air. He released the man. That's enough. She should find this possessiveness disturbing. Instead, it made her feel seen, protected, wanted. By day 12, they'd fallen into a routine. Mornings, he taught her self-defense in the private gym, his hands correcting her stance, his body pressed against hers as he showed her how to break a hold. She tried to focus on the techniques, not the heat of his skin or the way his breath hitched when she got too close. Evenings, she cooked. The mansion kitchen became her sanctuary, and she filled it with a sense of home. Bobo tie, pap, chakalaka. Minjun would appear like clockwork at 7, watching her move with an intensity that made her hands shake. Say it again, he'd murmur, and she'd teach him Zulu phrases while stirring pots. Njai Kathanda, she whispered one night. I love you is what the word meant. Njai Kathanda, he repeated carefully, not knowing the meaning. She didn't correct him. Not yet. His men noticed the changes. Taehyun nearly dropped his gun when Minjun smiled, actually smiled, at something Zola said during a dinner meeting. The guards whispered. The boss was different. Softer. Almost human. On day 20, everything shifted. Zola was arranging flowers in the foyer when a woman walked through the front door like she owned it. Tall, elegant, deadly beautiful in a black suit that screamed power. Her eyes found Zola and went cold. So, you're the replacement, the woman said in perfect English. Minjun appeared from his office, and Zola watched his expression shudder completely. G1, what are you doing here? Syndicate meeting, darling. Or did you forget I still run the Eastern Territories? G1's smile was poison. I want to meet your wife. The way she said wife made it sound like an insult. Zola learned quickly that G1 was everything she wasn't. Confident, ruthless, fluent in the language of violence that Min Jun spoke. They built the syndicate together, lovers and partners, until G1 chose ambition over him 3 years ago. Now she was back, and the way she looked at Min Jun made Zola's stomach twist. You're younger than I expected, G1 said, circling Zola like a predator. And so innocent. Tell me, do you even know what your husband does? The men he's killed? The blood on his hands? I know enough. Do you? G1 leaned in, voice dropping. You think you can handle this world? You're too soft. He'll realize it soon enough. He'll throw you away like he did me. Except I left by choice. You'll just be discarded. The words hit like bullets. Every insecurity Zola had buried came rushing back. She wasn't enough. She'd never been enough. Not for her family, not for anyone. Why would a man like Min Jun want someone like her? Min Jun's voice cut through the room. G1, leave. I'm here for business, Min Jun. Don't let your little pet make you soft. She smiled again, venomous. I'll see you at the meeting. After she left, Min Jun reached for Zola, but she stepped back. Is it true? You and her. It was a long time ago. She still wants you. I don't care what she wants. His jaw tightened. I only care about. I need air. Zola fled before he could finish. The next week was torture. G1 appeared everywhere. Meetings, restaurants, even the mansion. She touched Min Jun's arm familiarly, whispered in his ear, reminded everyone that she knew him in ways Zola never would. And Zola withdrew, piece by piece, back into the silent, obedient shell she'd been raised to inhabit. Min Jun noticed. Of course he noticed. But he didn't understand why his wife suddenly flinched from his touch, why she stopped teaching him Zulu, why the warmth in her eyes had frozen over. Talk to me, he demanded on day 35. There's nothing to say. Zola. Maybe she's right. Maybe I don't belong here. Her voice cracked. Maybe you should just let me go now. His hands clenched. No. Why not? The Alliance doesn't need. Because I need you. The words exploded from him, raw and desperate. I don't care about the Alliance. I care about you. And I don't know how to make you believe that. Min Jun took Zola to Jeju Island that night, away from G1, away from the syndicate, away from everything. They stayed in a house on the cliffs, just the two of them and the endless ocean. I was 14, Min Jun said on the second night, staring at the waves. My father put a gun in my hand and a man on his knees in front of me. Said if I didn't pull the trigger, I wasn't his son. So I did. I became what he wanted. A killer. A monster. Zola's hand found his. You're not a monster. I've done monstrous things. So have I. When he looked at her, surprised, she continued. I let people make me invisible. I let them tell me I was worthless. I killed the girl I could have been because it was easier than fighting. They sat in silence, two broken people trying to figure out how to be whole. On their last night in Jeju, the sunset turned the sky crimson. Min Jun pulled her close, and when he kissed her, it wasn't possessive or desperate. It was tender, real, like a promise neither of them knew how to make. Njai Kathanda, she whispered against his lips. What does it mean? You'll know in due time, she responded, smiling. His hands tightened on her waist. Say it again. Njai Kathanda. He kissed her like she was oxygen, and when they finally pulled apart, his breathing was so heavy she could hear his heart beating. They returned to Seoul different, closer. Day 45 had passed, and Zola realized with startling clarity, she didn't need 90 days. She'd already fallen. The market in Hongdae was crowded, vibrant, alive. Zola had insisted on going alone. Just for an hour, just to feel normal. Min Jun had reluctantly agreed, stationing guards at every corner. She browsed fabric stalls, smiling at vendors, feeling almost free. She didn't see the van until it was too late. Hands grabbed her from behind. Cloth pressed over her mouth. Chemical sweetness filled her lungs. The world tilted, blurred, went black. She woke in darkness, head pounding, wrists bound to a metal chair. The warehouse smelled of rust and decay. Footsteps echoed, and then G1 emerged from the shadows, immaculate as always. Hello, little bride. Zola's heart hammered. What do you want? To see if he really loves you. G1 circled her slowly, predatory. Or if you're just a novelty. A shiny new toy he'll discard when he gets bored. He'll come for me. Oh, I'm counting on it. Jiwon's smile was cruel. But will he come because he loves you? Or because you're his property and no one steals from Minjun? She leaned close, voice dropping to a whisper. You're so fragile, so breakable. He needs someone who can stand beside him in blood, not someone who trembles at the sight of it. Hours passed. G1 never touched her physically, but the psychological torture was worse. Every insecurity, every doubt, weaponized and sharpened into blades that cut deeper than any knife. You'll never be enough for him. He'll tire of playing gentle. You're a weakness he can't afford. Zola tried to stay strong, but the words burrowed under her skin like parasites. At the mansion, Minjun returned from a meeting to find chaos. Then his assistant told him, Zola gone. Something inside him shattered. Find her. His roar echoed through the compound. Taehyun had never seen his boss like this. Unhinged. Feral, barely human. Tear the city apart. Burn every building. Kill anyone who. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. A photo. Zola bound in a chair, Ji-won's face beside hers. I'm going to kill her, Minjun whispered. Slowly. What followed became legend in Seoul's underworld. Minjun moved through the city like an avenging demon, leaving bodies in his wake. Anyone connected to Ji-won, anyone who might know where she was, they all bled. Taehyun and his men struggled to keep up as their boss carved a path of destruction through rival territories. 12 dead in the first hour, 20 by the second. Ji-won had left a clue. She always did. Arrogance her fatal flaw. A warehouse in Incheon, abandoned, perfect for her games. Minjun arrived like death itself. He found Zola exactly where Ji-won wanted him to, center of the warehouse, spotlight above her, a stage set for breaking. But it was the single strand of hair on the floor that made him stop. Cut. Deliberately placed. Ji-won had touched her. The rage that consumed him was beyond reason, beyond humanity. He became the monster his father had created. The nightmare that made grown men pray. Ji-won tried to run. She didn't make it far. Minjun caught her at the exit, slammed her against the wall with enough force to crack concrete. His hand closed around her throat, and for the first time in her life, Ji-won felt true terror. You touched her, he whispered, voice empty of everything but promised death. You cut her hair. Minjun, wait. His fist drove into her ribs. Bones cracked. She screamed. You made her cry. Another blow. Her cheekbone shattered. He would have killed her. Should have killed her. But Zola's voice cut through his fury. Minjun, stop. He froze, chest heaving, Ji-won's blood on his hands. Turned to see Zola standing free. She picked the locks while he was distracted, watching him with wide eyes. Please, Zola whispered. I need you. Not this. He dropped Ji-won like garbage, crossed to Zola in 3 strides, and gathered her against him. She was shaking, traumatized, but alive. Alive. I will burn this world down before I let anyone touch you again, he breathed into her hair. Do you understand? I will destroy everything. She nodded against his chest, and he carried her out, leaving Ji-won bleeding but breathing. A mercy he'd regret. The days after were strange. Zola couldn't sleep without nightmares. Couldn't be alone without panic clawing up her throat. But Minjun never left her side. He held her through the night terrors, whispered promises in the dark, showed a tenderness that seemed impossible from hands that had killed so easily. She'd seen the full extent of his violence now, the monster he could become. And somehow that made her love him more because she understood. This was how he loved. Fiercely, violently, completely. He would destroy the world for her without hesitation. On day 70, as he slept in the chair beside her bed, he'd been there for 4 nights straight. She reached out and touched his face. I think I'm falling for you, she whispered. His eyes opened, red-rimmed with exhaustion. You think. I know. I love you, Minjun. He broke. Actually broke. Tears streaming down his face for the first time since he was a child forced to become a killer. She pulled him onto the bed, held him as he shattered in her arms, and they cried together. For the childhood stolen, the innocence lost, the love they found in the ruins. The next weeks were the happiest of Zola's life. She taught him to meditate, though he was terrible at it. They cooked together, his large hands clumsy with vegetables, making her laugh. He learned to say I love you, instead of showing it through violence. He was softer with her, gentler, though his men reported he was still ruthless in business. She'd tamed the monster without neutering the man. On day 82, they made love for the first time. Not the claiming he'd wanted on their wedding night, but something tender and sacred. Afterward, tangled in sheets, he traced patterns on her skin and whispered Zulu phrases she taught him. They renewed their vows on day 85. No families, no alliances, just them. Taehyun officiated, grinning. Minjun's hands didn't shake when he slid the new ring on her finger, and when he kissed her, she tasted forever. Day 89 arrived with morning sickness. Zola stared at the pregnancy test. Heart racing. A baby. Their baby. She wanted to tell him immediately, but voices from his office stopped her cold. Territorial dispute, 5 years ago. Zola's brother was leading the South African. Boss had to make a choice. Her blood turned to ice. She crept closer, pressed her ear to the door. Taehyun's voice. Does she know you killed him? Minjun's silence was answer enough. The test slipped from Zola's fingers, clattering on marble. Inside the office, Minjun's head snapped up. Zola. Zola burst into the office, pregnancy test forgotten on the floor behind her. My brother. Tabo. You killed him. Minjun stood slowly, face draining of color. Behind him, Taehyun quietly slipped out, closing the door. Zola. Tell me it's not true. Her voice cracked. Please tell me it's a lie. He held her gaze, and she saw the answer before he spoke. It was 5 years ago. A territorial dispute. I didn't know he was your family. The room spun. You killed him. Yes. The simple admission shattered her. My brother. Tabo. He used to braid my hair. He taught me to ride a bike. He was the only one who tears streamed down her face. You took him from me. I didn't know. Does it matter? She screamed, and he flinched. You took my family from me. The only person who ever loved me, and you. You are my family now. His composure cracked. You're my wife. You're everything. I would never if I had known. But you didn't know, and you killed him anyway. How many others, Minjun? How many brothers, fathers, sons have you taken from people? He had no answer. They both knew the number was too high to count. I'm leaving. Her voice went hollow. I can't breathe here. I can't look at you. Zola, please. Don't. She held up a hand. Just don't. She packed in silence while he watched from the doorway, looking more broken than she'd ever seen him. At the door, she paused. Day 90 is tomorrow, she whispered. I guess we know my answer now. His hands clenched, but he didn't stop her. If that's what you want. What I wanted was a husband who didn't murder my family. The flight to Johannesburg was endless. Zola stared out the window, numb. One hand pressed to her stomach where a life grew, a life that was half hers, half his, half victim, half killer. She couldn't tell him now. Maybe not ever. In Seoul, Minjun became something darker than he'd ever been. The softness Zola had cultivated withered and died. Bodies piled up. Rival syndicates learned to fear him again. Not the controlled boss who'd been mellowed by love, but the demon who'd existed before her. Taehyun watched his friend spiral and said nothing. What could he say? Day 90 came and went. The ultimatum expired. Their marriage was technically over. Minjun drank for the first time in years and didn't stop for 3 days. In Johannesburg, Zola moved through her father's house like a ghost. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Her body was rejecting everything: food, water, rest. The stress consumed her from the inside out. On the 6th night, the cramping started. By morning, the baby was gone. She lay in a hospital bed, staring at white walls, and felt nothing. Emptiness where life had been. Emptiness where love had been. Just empty. Her father visited once. Awkward. Uncomfortable with grief. Your brother, he said finally. Tabo. He was betrayed by his own men. They were going to torture him for information. Sell him to rivals. Minjun, he paused. Minjun gave him a quick death. A merciful one. Zola's head turned slowly. What? I never told you because I was ashamed. My own network tried to kill my son, and I couldn't stop it. Minjun did what I couldn't. He saved Tabo from something worse. This was why we gave you out to marry him as a payment for a good deed. The truth rearranged itself, became more complex, more gray. Minjun had still killed her brother. But perhaps it wasn't the cruelty she'd imagined. I lost the baby, she whispered. Her father stood. I'm sorry. He left, unable to offer more. Zola curled into herself and wept for everything she'd lost. 2 weeks after she'd left Seoul, Zola was in the garden when she heard the gunshot. Jiwon stepped through the gate, gun raised, smile venomous. Hello again, little bride. Or should I say widow? I hear your marriage expired. Zola scrambled back. How did you? Did you think Minjun was the only one with resources? Jiwon advanced. He destroyed my reputation, my business, my face. Indeed, scars marred her once perfect features. So, I'm going to take the one thing he actually cares about. You. The gun leveled at Zola's chest. A body slammed into Jiwon from the side. Minjun. appearing like an avenging angel. He had kept eyes on Zola all the time she was there. His guards had informed him the moment G1 took a flight out. The gun fired wild. They crashed into the garden wall, a tangle of violence. But G1 was desperate, and desperate made her dangerous. She twisted, and the gun swung toward Zola again. Min-jun didn't hesitate. He threw himself in front of his wife. The bullet caught him in the chest. No, Zola's scream tore from her throat as he collapsed. She caught him, blood soaking her hands, so much blood. G1 aimed again. But guards Min-jun had stationed secretly around the property swarmed in. One kicked the gun toward Zola. Pick it up. Min-jun gasped, blood on his lips. Zola, pick it up. Her hands shook violently as she grabbed the weapon. G1 lunged. Zola closed her eyes and pulled the trigger. The recoil shocked her. When she opened her eyes, G1 was down, leg wound, screaming. Guards hauled her away. At the hospital, Zola refused to leave Min-jun's side. The surgery took hours. She sat in the waiting room, his blood still on her clothes, and prayed to God she wasn't sure she believed in. When he finally woke, groggy with anesthesia, his first word was her name. I'm here. She took his hand, tears falling. I'm here. I can't live in a world where you're not in it, he whispered. Even if you hate me. Even if you never want to see me again. I just need to know you're breathing somewhere on this earth. I don't hate you. The words poured out. I lost our baby. I lost you. I can't lose you again. I love you. I love you so much it's killing me. His good hand reached up, cupped her face. Baby. I was pregnant. I lost it after I left. The stress, she choked on tears. I'm so sorry. No, he pulled her down, kissed her forehead. I'm sorry. For everything. For your brother. For not telling you. For being a monster. You're my monster, she whispered against his lips. And I choose you. I choose us. They cried together in that hospital room, mourning the child they'd lost, the time they'd wasted, the pain they'd caused each other. But they were together. And this time, nothing would tear them apart. They returned to Seoul as different people. Min-jun had taken a bullet for love. Zola had pulled a trigger to save it. The balance between them had shifted, equalized, become something unbreakable. I want out, Min-jun told his syndicate leaders 3 months later. Not all at once. But I'm legitimizing. Security consulting. Private protection. Legal operations. The room erupted in protests, but one look from their boss silenced them. He was still dangerous, the scar on his chest proof of that. But the violence was no longer his first language. Zola stood beside him at every meeting, his moral compass, his conscience. She didn't try to erase who he'd been. She simply showed him who he could become. He created a foundation for orphans, children like he'd been, trapped in cycles of violence with no way out. Zola watched him with boys who'd lost everything, saw the gentleness in his hands as he taught them that strength didn't require cruelty. You're changing the world, she whispered one night. You changed mine first. When she told him she was pregnant again, he wept, this time with joy. Taehyun noticed how the men watched their boss differently now. Still respectful, still loyal, but no longer terrified. Min-jun commanded through competence and integrity rather than fear. He was more dangerous now in some ways because he was controlled, precise, purposeful. He's still our boss, one guard said. Just better. The twins arrived on a spring morning, a boy and a girl, screaming their arrival into the world. Min-jun held them both, these tiny perfect creatures, and swore he'd give them the childhood he'd never had. 5 years later, their home in Hanamdong was unrecognizable. Children's laughter echoed through halls that had once known only silence. The mansion that had been a fortress became a home. Min-jun's security empire was legendary, legitimate, legal, and impossibly successful. Zola's foundation had rescued over 300 women from trafficking, giving them the freedom she'd once been denied. On a Saturday afternoon, their living room was chaos. Little Tabo, named for the brother Zola had lost, built block towers with fierce concentration, inheriting his father's intensity. His twin sister, Jihai, narrated elaborate stories, dramatic like her mother. Family gathered around tables laden with food, Korean bulgogi beside South African bobo tie, kimchi next to chakalaka. Taehyun's children played with the twins. Guards who'd become family watched with soft eyes. Zola stood on the terrace watching it all when Min-jun's arms wrapped around her from behind. What are you thinking? That I'm happy. She leaned into him. So, did I fall in love with you in 90 days? His laugh rumbled through his chest into her back. You fell in love with me in 30. But who's counting? She turned in his arms, grinning. You are. You're definitely counting. Maybe. He kissed her, soft and sure. A man who'd learned to express love with gentleness and fierce protection in equal measure. I count every day I get to wake up next to you. Smooth talker. I learned from the best. Tabo crashed into their legs, demanding attention. Jihai followed, chattering in a blend of Korean, English, and Zulu that only her parents could fully understand. Minjun scooped them both up, making them shriek with laughter. Zola watched her husband, this man who'd walked into their wedding covered in blood, who'd offered her 90 days, who'd become her everything, and marveled at the transformation. Not just his, but hers too. The bloodstained beast had become a man. The frightened girl had become a queen. And together, they'd built a kingdom founded not on fear, but on love. Later, as sunset painted soul gold, they gathered for a family photo. Professional photographer, formal poses, everyone dressed beautifully. But the best shot was the candid one, Minjun kissing Zola's temple while the twins made faces, Taehyun photobombing in the background, everyone laughing. That night, after children were tucked in and guests had left, Minjun found Zola in their bedroom. 90 days, she mused. Seems like a lifetime ago. It was. We're different people now. Better people? He considered. Maybe not better. Just more whole. She nodded, understanding perfectly. They'd both been broken when they met. Him by violence, her by neglect. They'd shattered each other further before learning to piece themselves back together, stronger for the cracks. Njai Kathanda, she said. It means I love you, she continued. Njai Kathanda, he repeated, knowing every syllable now, feeling every word. Forever. Forever, she agreed. And in a mansion that had once been a fortress, in a city that had witnessed their destruction and rebirth, two people who'd been forced together by arrangement chose each other every single day by love.